As a youngster, I had a dream. In fact, two dreams that alternated. First one, then the second, then the first one, then the second. 4 dreams a year in 2 types. 6 years. How can a man have a dream, 2 dreams exactly the same every time, just like that, and mean nothing? At the age of 14, I looked at my dream. It's a game you all probably know. We call it hopscotch. But in this dream, this very game is very important. So important that your life depends on that being fulfilled. The picture is this. As the dream starts, I am standing on the square 2. My right leg is up high to cross into 4. My pebble that I've thrown is in 3. There are 8 squares. Why not circles? Why not triangles? Why squares? Why always in 2? Why always the pebble in 3? Why are we always in the same position to cross over? At this moment in time, and up to that point, all the children you know are with you. Then they vanish. You are all alone. You cannot move. Up here, coming towards you, is a steamroller. Now, that's a big steam power unit which rolls the road to repair it. Why has a steamroller came in this dream? It has nothing to do with the game. I'm afraid it has everything to do with the game. It's saying you are going to be responsible for producing immense energy. If all these people you've just seen vanish are going to remain on Earth, you've got to do something about it. You've got to stop, think, act. What are you going to do about it? Your life is in danger. You're going to be crushed to death. So what am I going to do about it? Surely, if it's telling you all life is going to be killed, if you don't do something about it, surely it's telling you what to do. So look at it. 1 don't have nothing to do with it picture. 2, what does 2 mean? It means there are 2 positive states in everything. Yes, no, born, death. 3, the marker. What does that mean? It means that you have a time span between birth and death which you must make use of. It's asking you, what are you going to do about it? You are being threatened. You've got to do something. What's the 4 for, and why 8? Well, I look at the 3, and it's very interesting. If we can write, I'll just see. If you take the square, and I assume that why it's always squares is because it's something to do with a square. And that's 3 is the first marker. Let's see what happens. So right, we said I don't know if you can read that, but if you add it all up, it adds to a precise number. Every line horizontal gives you 15. Every vertical gives you 15. The 2 diagonals give you 15. You have 8 options. 8 squares are shown in your dream. 8 options. Now, what happens? That is not the minimum number you can do. If we change these by 1, oh, yeah, so we do that again. This time we'll do the minimum one. Now, every line adds to 12. 8 choices, 12. What do we get from 12? The laws of all energy. 4 domains, your 4 squares you're going into. They're split into 3 sections. At all time you must know 2 states. That's why you're in 2, you must know 2 of the states to get the 3rd. In each domain you have 2 choices of each product that you are calculating. So you have 6, that's your 6 years of dreams. So what we're talking about, the steamroller say immense energy, the law of the square say what you're going to be involved with is energy. Right. What do we find when we look deeper into this mathematical squares? We find this, that every square has its own fingerprint. And no matter how much you try to do to get them to balance, they have a precise rule. Therefore, you cannot have a 1 square, you cannot have a 2 square. You start with 3. And nature works like this. Half of everything in the universe belongs to group 1. All your odd numbers belong to group 1. They rotate. The rest of everything in the universe breaks into 2 groups. They are called oscillating group 2, and then the group 3 contains both oscillating and rotation. We, as human beings, belong to group 3. We oscillate and we rotate. The oscillation in the body generates the electrical power, the rotation keeps everything happy. Now, the SEG, as we call it, the Searle effect engine or motor or generator, is this. It is not a motor as you accept the motor. It is an effect. It is not the motor. The motor can produce electric, or it can drive a car, train, aircraft. So the machine itself is not the item in question. It's the effect. Thus it's called Searle effect. We normally have a demonstration model, but unfortunately, 5 years ago, official people put pay to it. So we have to build another one. What happens is that you get 4 forces, 2 sets. On the left side is a lower value than the right side in the force. On the horizontal, the lower force is greater than the top force. And the amount difference on the horizontal is 2 units. Just 2 units. That applies to everything. No matter what the value of the machine you're building, that law holds good. But the law on the vertical has a set rule, and that is you take the square in which you're building the machine, and the value of the second line of the base that you're working from is the value between these 2. So if you've got a 4 mixture machine, you will find the value between, on the first level, is 8 between these 2. What happens is when you print your rollers and plates, the rollers go on, no way can they balance. So they move. When they move, the force reverses. The roller still has not got a stable state in which it can stop. It moves. How powerful you want those rollers to move will depend on the square you select to work from. Now, quickly I'll show you what the generator looks like, or the motor. I don't know if people can see from the back, but what it boils down to, we use 3 plates. There's a gap between each plate for rollers to rotate. When the rollers are put in, they immediately revolve. They have no choice. They cannot come to a stationary point in which they can remain stationary. To be able to stop them moving, you have to have an oscillator coil built around the machine, which you can apply an audio oscillation to slow down the rollers and to bring them to a halt. Now this is what you have to do. If we were building an estate, you've got to supply water to it. How do you supply that water? You've got to have a reservoir. You've got to store your water. That's important. Without the reservoir, you cannot keep water going to the customers. Then you've got to have control valves, control the flow which you want that flow to reach your customers. Then you've got to pipe it to the customer. You may have to put a high towers to build pressure, to keep the pressure there, to maintain the flow that you want to the houses. In other words, the engine that I have to produce got to meet these conditions. So, what I've done for a very simple machine, which is now being built, is to use our 4 systems. The inner one is the reservoir. The second one does the control of how many electrons can move through to the outer ring. The next material accelerates those electrons. The final one gives them. So what you've got is the inner one is the collector. The second one is the control gate. The third one is the accelerator, and the final one is the emitter. It's a solid state project. It's a magnetic device and not a magnet. People always write about my work as magnets. It is incorrect. People write as if the powders are just mixed like a pudding. You stick in 10% this, 5% that. Forget it. If you try to copy that, you'll never make the SEG. It will not work. Now, you have the options are either using brushes to collect the energy, or you put your coils on. Now, if you wind coils, you'll wind them like for any other transformer system. There is nothing different in the winding of the coils. With production of electricity, you have 2 choices. You either rotate the magnetic field, or you rotate the conductors. In our case, we prefer to rotate the magnetic flux. So as the roller rotates, it's also rotating around the base plate. Because you have a pull at this point, the electrons start flowing towards the roller through the plate. This is speeded up. As it leaves the plate, it's collected by the roller and again in itself speeded up. It is then passed on because as you speed up electrons, it cannot stop just like that. So it leaves the roller as the roller comes round to continue its roll. The electrons are leaving to the next plate, which is readily there collecting all the spare electrons. These are controlled again through the next plate. Now you've got a lot more arriving at the second run of rollers. This again is speeded up through the third plate. And when it leaves the third set of rollers, it is almost at the speed of light. Now, the first thing one says is that how much would such a machine cost? Well, I can say this much. It will cost less than any generator you can buy. Much less. The second point is, how long will it last? Well, I think we can safely say twice as long as any other generator. The other point is, how much does it cost to run? Well, a lot cheaper than the other machines that you can find. Now, what pollution does it make? None. No pollution. What else does this machine do? Well, it does something that no other motor can do. It cleans the air as it operates. It also is very useful because I am a sample of a proof of that engine. I stand here, I look at you, you cannot see I've been in a severe explosion. Without that machine, I would not be here today. I would be a horrible mess, a terrible mess. It took 14 days to heal. I was told I would be a perfect image of an explosion. I'd be permanently marked. I can assure you, I doubt if anyone here can point out which side of my face and neck was badly damaged. Only a skin specialist can tell you which side is different to the other side. Now, if I can stand here after a major explosion and talk to you, and you cannot see the damage, think of this machine in hospitals, in your home. It protects your health while it works. There are 1 or 2 machines in England working at the moment, but those people need them. They only had 2 weeks left to live. They're now 10 years older. And they're glad not to let the machine go, so I'm not able to borrow it to bring here to show you that one in operation. Mine got destroyed, unfortunately. Now, I have signed many contracts since December. In the USA, there are 2 contracts running. Unfortunately, there are statements in the contracts which actually cheats me of my rights. So, until those contracts have been corrected, I'm not helping them any further. A few weeks ago, I was in the Canary Islands. We were also working for 2 weeks on the machine. In fact, this machine which is still being built. And the contract, unfortunately, also cheats me of my rights. And I'm afraid that I have to put a page to that. These are the series of contracts which have been signed since December. These machines are partly built. They cannot finish them. They need my help. I have today agreed with Dr. Martin Gillow that I will accept his offer to build the generator. He called on me a few weeks ago at home and put the proposal forward to me. I've given not a thought to it. I do think this gentleman who sits here is honest. He's about the first one I've found so far. Everyone up to now, all these contracts, with just a few hundreds I've got, only want to know how to make this engine so they don't need me anymore. They can go and make themselves millions. Now, on this agreement, which I will sign today, I will hand it to Dr. Martin Gillow so he can now proceed to make this generator under my instructions. I'd like you to see, today's date is the 18th.
Yes.
I'm pleased to accept you to work with me and develop this engine for mankind. It's a shame that in this world all man can think of greed. Money, money, money. I want millions. No more about him, he can go without. My concept has been to save life and to make this place a better place. Money is not important. If a thing is good, it'll look after you. What's more important to me is that you have a machine in your home that will give you energy that's clean and clean the atmosphere that you've got to live in, because out there it is not healthy at all. The trees are sick. It's time we did something about it. I'm doing all I can. people stand up in front and talk about the pollution and do nothing but talk. I want action, and I'm prepared to work 7 days a week, 20 hours a day to get this work moving. It is a difficult machine to make, but then again, nature has always appeared to the human being as a very complicated thing. Yet, the maximum order of nature is 4. It uses the code in a way that allows it to perform everything you see. We are supposed to be intelligent and human, yet we are killing everything that exists without thinking that we are killing ourselves at the same time. Now, everybody may wonder if I have patented this engine. I can assure you that I've just received the papers from the US Patent Office with the number. And also I have been given a NASA contract to look into an engine. Unfortunately, I cannot meet that date they want, so it'll have to go on the next one round. They wanted the details by the 28th of this month. I'm very interested to see production everywhere in the world. I have asked the paper Space and Time if they would be interested to support this effort. And the publisher said he was very interested in this work. But it's a bit more than being interested. We need a factory, we need laboratories in every country. We have got to produce machines that are clean. This engine can be used in your home to produce power. It can be used in your car to run it instead of polluting the air from your petrol and oil. You say, right, that'll put the petrol station out. They won't be needed. But what is holding up work in every point of the earth is the cost of the power. If we could halve the cost of the power, it means we could have twice as many people working because the power is that much cheaper. If we are cleaning up the pollution by the machines and not making any more, we reduce the cost to mankind because pollution is going to cost us a lot of money. Somebody's got to pay for it. The government won't, you've got to pay. So here we have a machine which may not be appreciated, can be used in firefighting, it can be used in cleaning the waters, it can be used to convert seawater to drinking water. And how many countries would benefit from this machine? Yet Band-Aid is not interested. They're not a bit interested about what this machine can do, how it would benefit. Because if you could supply water to countries without water, they can grow their own food. Each year they need less money because they're now looking after themselves. Look at the hospitals. How many people are in hospitals with chest troubles? In the world there must be 1 million or more who would benefit from such a machine. How many people got people at home with asthma and bronchitis? They would certainly benefit from this machine, even if you don't consider the cheap electric you're using from it is worth it. How much would such a machine cost for the home? Let's say probably £300. I don't know what you think about that. From what you worked out, you haven't come to any.
Not yet, no.
Let's say on a mass production line, they'd probably cost you £300 to buy. £300 to buy, the running cost half of what you pay now for your electric. Surely that's worth investing in. Your car, how much does your fuel cost to run it? Surely, if you could have this engine on the wheels of your car, to drive your car, you're not making any pollution. Surely that engine is worth £300. if you know that engine lasts much longer than your car engine will last. And you don't have to worry about starting because it's instant. How often you get up on a cold, damp morning and the car won't start? When you go to buy something like this, you have to weigh up what the total cost is going to be to you in your lifetime. I'll guarantee you that if this machine you bought packed up before the time we said, we will replace it with no argument, free of charge. If your car packed up, we will replace it. Whenever you present a new machine of a new technology, everyone's frightened of it. You only got to go on a corner of a street and hold, say, 100 German marks, handfuls of them, and say, give me 1 German mark for 100 German marks. Most people will walk past you and think you're nuts. It's a con. Now that's the same sort of picture I'm confronted with. I have a machine I can offer for production, but because it costs you so little to operate it, and it lasts so long, everyone thinks it must be a con. It's not a con. People may think when they see the parts running round, you have speeded them up before the show starts. I can assure you, you don't touch them. Now, over the years I've been demonstrating this engine. Everybody took no notice of it. They want to see an engine you're putting a gallon of petrol in. Then they take interest, because they can see what's going in. Because you cannot see what's going in this machine does not mean nothing is going in. You cannot take anything out of something without something going in. Something does go in, for it's all around you. The energy that feeds this machine is round you, me, our colleague, our friend. It's everywhere. More than you ever need is sitting there and unused. This machine converts it. As I said, to get electricity, you have 2 choices. That is what the dream says. You have 2 choices. You can rotate the magnets, or you can rotate the coils. But what must exist is that the lines of conductors must be cut by lines of flux. On your main supply, what we do, we deflect the electrons so that when you switch on, you have a positive state in which will draw the electrons off your cable in motion. Every time you use your electric, your bulb will get deteriorated in the element because you will lose a few electrons. But you do not consume electrons. You do not pay for electrons, they are free. You don't pay for them. What you pay for is the work done at the other end and the cables that get it to you. Why pay this money if you can have a machine in your house doing the work for you? Why put up with power cuts when you can have the energy in your own house? Why have pollution if you don't want pollution? Why have cables slung across the country which affects the human being and any other creature as far as that goes? You may say it's not been proven, but as a research worker, I've seen how water reacts under magnetic fields. We are 90% the water. We must respond exactly the same. And that's not good for us. Not only does it spoil the scenery, it's not good for high technology, all that static condition. So we have everything in favour of a domestic power unit instead of mains supply. Of course the mains people would resent such a machine coming on the market. This has always been the problem. But if the public demand this machine, then the public will get it. If you sit back for the big boys to produce it, you'll never get it. To produce a machine like this today is costly. When I first built the first one in 1946, it was very cheap. 32 cents a kilo I paid for the powders. Machines were all there for me to use. So the machines I made then in 1946 was indeed cheap. Today it's very expensive, the materials. Why? The day I used them, they were only used by the glass manufacturers for polishing the glass or tinting the glass. So nobody realized the value of those powders. What I'd like to show, unfortunately you're going to have a hard job to see there, is that the element table shows the elements available on Earth and those that man can make. Now, they've done this table very interesting because down here they've put two bands of elements. They're called rare earths. Immediately you think they must be very scarce. They're not. They are available all over the world by the tons. But it's what they do that make them expensive, because the manufacturers suddenly realize you can make things like magnets with them, powerful magnets. So they start charging a lot more for this powder. Now, let's have a look at it. Down here on the rare earths, they're called rare earths because they have a habit of collecting more electrons than they need. This top band of elements, they collect 14 extra electrons on what we call the 4th F band. On the bottom layer, they collect 14 extra electrons on the 5F band. All this lovely energy, nobody doing anything with it. There's every atom, and you cannot see an atom unless you have a very powerful machine to display it to you, have 14 units of energy it does not require. Why don't you use it? We want it. We want tons of it. So, we can take any one of these as the reservoir part of the generator, because obviously if the generator ring consists of a kilo of any of these mixtures as the reservoir, you have a whole lot of energy waiting to be used. Then you need a control gate. Well, for a control gate we have to look at plastics and nylons. I use nylon because of the double bond that they have. The nylon controls the flow of all this extra energy through the material. Now, what I do then is I cause more electrons to go into a mixture which don't want them, so they push them on, speed them up. They go into the final emitter, again, going into a mixture with less electrons, so they don't even want those that you're pushing in. But because you have a roller running round that can absorb this energy, they all move one way. It's often stated in reports I've read about my engine by scientists that the centrifugal force caused the electrons to go outwards. I disagree with them. It is because you have forced them in one direction because they're not wanted. They're just looking for some place to go. And the rollers give them the opportunity to find a place to go. That is why the electrons go outwards. Now, the elements, or nature I can say, have given you all the ingredients to make this generator. Scientists, when they make a generator, do not look at the equations at hand. They do not ask what functions. They're not interested. As long as there's a magnet spinning around and the coils are there, they have electricity, that's all they worry about. You pay the price, what it costs. So you make heat. The beauty about this machine is that you do not make heat. Why? Your conventional motor is like hitting a peanut with a sledgehammer. When you do that to nature, nature always responds with heat. Heat deteriorates things. This machine, we do not hit it with a sledgehammer. We stroke it, so it gently gives you the power you need. And you might say, right, what happens if you have an overload? Ah, this machine will give it to you. It will keep giving you this overload to a certain point. Then it starts getting really cold. And then strange things happen in the next whirl of coldness. The materials lift. And then you'll destroy your house, which I discovered in 1946 with my first experiment. The force of such an engine, overloaded, will deteriorate your ceiling when it strikes it. And if it keeps doing so, it will eventually cause the building to collapse. 30 Crawley Road, when the first experiment was done, lasted 6 months before it was unfit to live in, because it was crumbling up too fast, because I couldn't find out why these things kept lifting up and tearing up to the ceiling. Right, now, that we know that the engine gets colder when you overload it, we can put it to another use. We can use it for flight. If the thing gets so cold that it rises in the air, why not give it a body and allow it to fly in the air? And this is what we did in 1956. As we couldn't seem to keep them on the ground, they all seemed to want to go up. We gave it a body, and it's called, in those days, the levity disc. Means it varies. Today they're called inverse G vehicles. Now, again, it does the same thing. It cleans the air as it passes through. It does so at some distance away from the rim, because the air is moved away from the rim of the vehicle. Again, we have the same problems. Civil aviation don't like it, because they say, how do you control it if the engine packs up? So we have a problem. To make people happy on this earth at official quarters is a very hard job. They're not interested how cheap the travel will be, how clean it is. Their concern is what happens if the engine packs up. This is one engine that don't pack up. That's the unfortunate thing about it. If you try to stop it, the only way you can do it is by putting something solid jammed down in it. But the rollers are running too fast for you to be able to do that. And the rollers will not stop until you put a frequency against them that will deteriorate the force acting on them. So we have a position that an engine can be made. I say can be made. They were made. Unfortunately, we couldn't find no backers to put production line up. There are engines being made at this moment, and don't think I'm kidding you on this. There are. There are trying to beat me at the gate. At Sussex University in England, they are working with scientists around the clock to get that engine out I showed you before. I signed a contract with someone else to make it. Because if we beat them, they have lost a big investment, which they've been struggling now since 1968 to do. They know that I am putting pressure on to get this engine built. Though you may say, well, if the university is so interested in this engine, why don't they employ me to make it? Well, they do offer me employment to make it, £150 a day. But the engine is not mine. It is a fellow called Brian Collins of Australia. He has conned millions of people to make this engine since he saw it in 1968. He has not been successful, but I can tell you now, from communications 2 days ago, a lot of scientists have been brought in to get that engine made. Unfortunately, I have given them a lot of information, thinking I was having an honest deal with this company in the Canary Islands. I was not aware that Brian Collins had got them to do the deal with me. I am therefore concerned that that engine is not made, that it is made with people I can trust. Brian Collins, I can assure you, will con everyone with it if he gets it. He will make fortunes out of it. I'm not interested in fortunes, I'm interested to clean up our problems. I want to live. Brian Collins don't appreciate the dangers ahead of him. He was only interested in making money. Therefore, I wish to make clear, you may have heard that there is no way of getting energy unless you pay dearly for it. You are being conned. Absolutely conned. You can have an engine which costs you very little to run. All right, the engine, say the engine even costs you £500, say when we come to make them on production line, we find we cannot make the number per day that would be needed to get it out that cheap. At £500 in the UK would still be very cheap because it costs them more than that a year for the mains electric that they use. Assuming that all countries are basically the same in their charges for electric, this engine is vital because you're going to pay more and more and get more and more pollution for more power that they're making. When we come again, I hope we will have a new unit to show you. And you will see for yourself there's no noise, there is no pollution from it. And above all, while you're sitting here listening to what we are saying about that demonstration, when you leave, you'll feel better. In that short time that you'll be in that room, watching that demonstration, you will feel better than you've felt for years. And why? It's because the air in the room is passing over it and it's being cleaned. And the air coming back to you is pure. And you'll immediately feel, it only takes an hour by that machine to feel the difference. In fact, in 5 minutes you'll feel funny. What you're breathing is not what you're now breathing. You'll feel a cold feeling coming to your nose. You'll get a sense that you're not breathing, you're drinking fresh spring water. That is something you probably cannot remember the days when you could drink nice fresh spring water. As you breathe in, that is the feeling you get, that you're drinking. And I can assure you that. There are a number of people, if we could afford to bring them, they will tell you they've used the machine and that's the result they got. Nice feeling. You feel good. Now, I've given you very brief details about the engine because everybody has got questions. Everyone got different thinking. And what I like to try to do, I'm deaf, so our gentleman here will try to tell me what you're asking and I will try to explain the best we can. Any answers that I can give, I'll give you while we're here.
Seems to be I'm the only one who didn't understand this principles. The whole principle of the working machine.
He didn't understand the principle of the working machine.
Right. I'll try.
Along the square.
Yeah. I'll try to repeat. Pity I haven't got a big model to show you. We use 3 rings and we call them plates. And what happens, I'll get the drawing again. Can you hold it? What happens is this. That's one ring we call the outer ring. Then there's the middle ring.
What material they are made? What material?
What kind of material, he asked.
Now, what you can use, as I quoted here, use one of these compounds for the... Each plate is made up of 3, 4, 5 or 6 mixtures, whichever you want. But one of them, the inner one, inside one, must be one of these. That is the reservoir, like a reservoir of water. It's a reservoir of electrons. Just like water. Think of it as water.
Special kind of powder, I understand.
Yes.
They are made in a special way and centered and so on.
Yes.
He understands that it's a special combination of powders which are specially made.
Yes. Yes.
Okay,
now, you set them up in a manner in which the flow will go outwards towards the coils. Now, the normal coils are like in any generator. They collect the electrons that you are emitting. Now,
The gentleman is asking, what kind of flow is that?
it's electron flow. Yeah. Look at the electron flow in this case like water. Think of water going along a tap, because this is what you're really doing. Then you've got to compress them to force them forward. So you take one of the materials here to slightly compress so they move faster. As they move to the next material, you're taking one of the more smaller materials and you're compressing more so that you're forcing the electron to speed up and shoot forward. Two things happen. If you speed up electron, you've got more space to bring more electrons in. So instead of now 1 per little, say centimetres, just to try to give you an illustration, you've now got 3. When you get into the next one, instead of 3, you've now got 8. So you're compressing more and more electrons in. The only difference with this machine and a normal generator is the fact that you push electrons into the coils, whereby the normal conventional ones, you're deflecting the electrons. That's the difference. So what it means is every time you turn your light on, the bulb gets better because the element is improving. You're building the element up.
So can we say you squeeze them out, the electrons?
So,
He wants to say that you squeeze the electrons out.
yes, you're squeezing the electrons out into the windings. So the reservoir material, the one of these that you use, we use near 60 mainly, but you can use any of the others.
How get the electrons what are squeezed out back in the elements?
That once they have done their work, you're taking more electrons from the air because they're everywhere.
So this element will squeeze it out, suckling it back from the...
Now, when they squeeze out on the outer ring, they squeeze into your collecting coils or brushes, whichever system you're using, so that you can pass it around the system. What we're doing, instead of deflecting the electrons so that you can switch on and cause a flow to happen, we're pushing some in. So what you've got, instead of having, say, 250 volts or 240 volt positive, you now got negative to that point. It's up above. You've got more electrons, not less. You're working the other way round. You're pushing electrons in.
But the source of the electrons...
But still the same. It's still the same.
What is the source of the electrons?
But electrons are the part of the atom. What we're doing is taking atoms with a load of spare electrons.
He's asking, how are the electrons getting back to the atoms?
Well, what happens is the reservoir is the supplier of the electrons. The reservoir collects everywhere. It loves electrons. There are electrons all around you. There's electrons everywhere. And what this reservoir does is collect it like water from the hills. Water is collected and stored. Any of these materials will do just that, pull them in. It loves them. It just stores them up. It don't want them, but for some reason it just grabs them. Every atom has 14 extra electrons. Now, an atom you cannot see. You need a terrific magnification to get an image of it. And you think of the number of atoms in a piece of material you can see. The thousands of millions of little spare electrons not needed. Why not use them? They're there. The material will gladly collect others so you don't run out of them. So that's the theme, is to get more electrons than you need and maintain them, and then push them into the cables. That way the cable in the house do not deteriorate, because eventually by the other system you will lose electron of the material. Eventually the material age, in 20 years you've got to replace it. When you put this cable in for this machine and the house, you need no replacement of cables because you do not deteriorate them. You have no heating in the cable. But as I explained just before the meeting to the doctor, we have to put heat sensors on the cable so that if you've got a faulty cooker, the cable, as soon as it starts heating, shuts down that line and no other line. The other lines keep running. Because it's silly to overload the generator because you're going to make the thing take off, and then you won't have a generator for your house. So we have to put little heat sensors on the wires, because I don't want nobody ringing me up and say, look, my house is destroyed. The power unit is blown up. So we put this on, but that's only to protect the system in case your cooker or heater goes down and cause the cable to overheat. But other than that, there is nothing whatsoever about the machine that presents a danger. It cannot catch fire. In fact, if you have a fire in the house, get the lid of the generator open and turn it to it and knock the fire out. But it don't knock the fire out because it's destroying the oxygen. It's knocking it out because it's putting more electrons back into that fire than the fire is emitting. So the fire dies. We are too keen to think that the oxygen in the air is the reason why the fire burns. Right, it does make the fire burn. But it's the electrons that are leaving that center that is causing the fire to get hotter and hotter. If you put more electrons in than leaving, the fire gets less hot. And then you gradually freeze the area so the fire cannot restart. The disk, when travelled, that's the only fault with it. It's when it passes through clouds, you have an instant hailstorm following it, because the water you just passed through freezes instant, because the outer shell of the craft is almost 0 K. Not 0 Fahrenheit or centigrade, it's 0 K. So anything it touches instantly freezes. That's the only problem with it, but it's a good problem, because if a country got no water, but you do have a few clouds, you only got to send the craft through them, and it will drop on the area as hailstones. So you have a water supply from the source you wouldn't have had otherwise. But it also has another advantage. If you've got a cyclone or hurricane or anything like this about to hit a country, you can go in and destroy it. It has advantage. All right, it has a disadvantage that if you pass through clouds, you get this problem of a hailstorm following it. But what little problem for all the other good things it can do? There's no radiation, there's no pollution from it. It cleans the pollution from the air. It drops out of the air. And the same with the generator. For the cost of it, it has so much good use, so many good things about it. I used to pour from an electric kettle with the switch locked so it can't switch off, water, hot water on my hand, so all can see. And then I would hold my hand up and say, where is the damage? You see, when somebody pours boiling water on the hand, they expect to see damage. But there is no damage. Why? It's because the machine is putting more electrons back than that hot water is making move out of my skin. So that hand is frozen in relation to that water that's hitting it. Unfortunately, if we had a machine today, I would have probably done that demonstration. I normally use that demonstration to try to put the impact of the medical potential of the machine where people are burnt. Because, as I said, I wasn't in an explosion, but 14 days my face is healed. So it has great medical benefits to all.
Yeah, there's another question.
Yes?
Die Demonstration zwischen den... die Demonstration, können Sie nochmal demonstrieren, das Prinzip von Quadratgesetz, was das genau zu tun hat mit dieser Maschine, wie das genau, das Quadraturgesetz, wie das da wirksam wird, wie das in der Maschine.
The gentleman would like to know what is the interdependence of the law of the square and the principle of the running of this machine.
What happens about the law of the squares? This is really a bit of the paperwork, the laws of the squares. If you set the square out and you put your numbers down vertical in the order in which you normally read them off, they all add up different every line. But to revolve these around so they all read the same, take each of the square of any line, take the greatest number as the heaviest weight of the elements. Whichever is heavier of the one you're going to use, put the quantity at the largest number. So, I don't know if you can see this.
Die größte Zahl gibt das schwerste Element.
Say we were only using a 3-powder mixture. On there we look, the highest number is 8. So, say we're using that line as our mixture. So we take 8 grams of the heaviest of the elements. Say our reservoir, which is normally the reservoir one, we take atom 60, element 60, helium. We need 8 grams. Then, our next heavy one is 3. To that 8 grams, you need a layer of 3 grams of the next element, which may be titanium. Right, so you put titanium in. Then you look at your last one, 1 gram. So you put 1 gram of that, which may be aluminium. So you put that on the surface. Now, if you do that, you can energize it. Now, you can use AC, but put 7 grams instead of 8 for the other 2, it will not energize. That is the law of the square. When you work it out, you must follow what that tells you to do. You use the largest number for your heaviest element. That's your reservoir. Now, what we do, we decide the size of machine we want to build and we work out the volume. Then, once we know the volume we got to fill, I have written and worked out the chart. I'll just show it to you. I look at the number, I've got the other way, for the value of the volume. Then it tells me how many squares will fit that volume. Then I can see what choice of powders mixture I can have. Having decided which one, I then calculate it out, which I have done mass calculation, so they're ready, so I can design any generator any time I want, without having to sit down any more to work them out. When I put it together, on the back I have calculated the frequencies for the level, which level I have used in the mixture. And that tells me the frequency I got to use to put these poles on that material. Now, it's not one pole on the material, there's hundreds of poles. They're in pairs, north and south, but they're out of step. They're diagonally. Now, whatever setup you do, you must know that the figures of each mixture is correct. It must be correct. That's the most important part of it. Otherwise, certain numbers, as I've written on the back of one of these sheets, just won't energize. None of these numbers will energize. So if somebody said to me, I made your SEG, I said to them, what's the volume of the plate? And they tell me, if it's down here, he's a liar. They cannot energize it. If he's right, he has quoted a figure, which is on this side. Then I said to him, what square did you use to get your figures? If that's not listed on here, it's a green square, he's lying. It cannot be done. Nature, though it looks random, is very precise about what you can do and cannot do. And the SEG works with nature. The only machine in the world that works with nature and not against nature. Every other machine, you're thumping nature like hell to get something out of it. So you get pollution as well. The law says this: no two things can share the same space in the same time. You cannot share this space I am at this moment because I'm here. But we can force you to share this space. And when we do that, we become half of you and half of me. The rest go as pollution. Because the law must be maintained. One item in this space. That is the law. There's two states. A space frame and a time frame. And the law says this: if you want an object to share the same space, it must share a different time. So we got two choices. We can speed up the time, so you can stand in the space with me. And we have to put you in an accelerator to speed you up. Now you can stand in my time with me. You're at a different time, I'm at my time. People can't see you, they can't see me, and you can't see them because we're in different time. But we are in the same space. The law says you can do that. Another interesting thing about the square of the law, as I said, on the dream, I'm left standing on square 2 by myself. That seems strange. In front of me is the square 3. That 3 must be important. And when you work out the squares, 3, when you can start bringing in square 4, which is a different time frame altogether, you'll find there are 6 units of time before. And what it's saying is that man was created from the moment of conception in 6 days, and on the 7th day you are pregnant. You can relapse. And it also states that out of 4 pregnancies, only 1, for conception, only 1 becomes a pregnancy. The other 3, the woman is not aware of. They pass through the system and you're not aware of. Now, through these laws, it tells you everything you can do and cannot do. All you have to do, I've designed houses by this law, and the result is amazing. I've gone through this law right through, and what do I see? The universe looking at me. It shows me why the universe is like a slender disc. I built my craft on the same laws, and it is a slender disc. The house I've designed for the problems coming up turns out to be a slender disc. The law is pretty precise about what's involved and what is not involved. What it does say is this: everything consists of a domain of 4, and it's jigging these things about. If you're in that block, you cannot be in any of the other 3 blocks in the energy world. You must decide which block of the 4 you want to be in, and you decide from that block. You just can't mix the blocks. You have to decide which block it is you're going to function in. All of life like that. It's like the fly. The fly sits there. If that fly is looking at you, I don't care how hard you try to hit it. You cannot hit it. And why? It's in a different time frame than you. That hand to you, you have hit it as hard. To the fly, you have been coming down like that. It can sit and wait until you think you've got it, and then it goes. There's plenty of time to do it. A mouse running on the field sees an elephant. But the mouse doesn't have to worry about the elephant. That elephant is very, very slow to it. Its time frame is entirely different. On the space vehicle that I hope we're going to build in my lifetime, you'll be able to travel in time, through time spasm. If we set you a program, we've already drawn it up in a report and worked it out. If we carry that one out, you will travel out 20 years to look at the universe. 20 years back, how old will the Earth be on your return if we travel at 2 Gs, constant acceleration? The Earth will be 40 million years old when you return. In the Bible, you read of a prophet who lived 988 years on Earth. Impossible fact to do. He did it. We have found no record since showing when he died or if he died, but the last record showed he left very much alive. He wrote 144 books of his troubles. The Bible of the old days printed 4 only. Today, those 4 are not in the Bible. Why were they never put in the Bible? Because it went up against the grain of the church. So they left them out. Those books contain vital information called the law of the squares. The law I use. The law in the dream. That tells me that's the law I have to use. Now, half of the numbers, as I say, all the odd numbers, you can give me any number, providing you've got the square paper. It only takes a minute to run them out. When you add them up, you'll find every row exactly the same value, because the law is precise. When you take the second group, it's a bit more complicated because it's oscillating. You have 4 squares. The top square, the bottom one opposite, is the mirror image of that one. The opposite one to the right hand is the mirror image. But that corner is not a mirror image of that corner, nor is it a mirror image of that corner, nor does it represent anything to itself. It belongs to a different domain. In a square of the law, there are 3 domains. In a law of existence, you've got 3 states: gas, liquid, solid. You cannot cheat it. But to blend and change from one to the other, 6 choices. That's the law. That is the law of the dream I had. It told you precisely all the mathematics needed to decide the engine for your home, for power, for cars, for trains, for aircraft, get your fresh water from the sea, to clean up the pollution. It told you everything in the most simple form it could tell you in. Yet, today man's too prepared to make an atomic power station to give you the same energy for your home. A thing we still don't fully understand, that can be, due to that lack of understanding, be dangerous. Every power station in Britain working has leaked, some badly, yet they're still going to build more. Here's a machine that does away with all that problem. Yet, official people do not want to know why. The simple answer is, it does not produce the amount of money they want. That is the answer. Now, another thing too, The government look at it this way. If you brought this machine out, you closed down the power stations, you closed down petrol garages. What do you do with all these people? For every one place shut down, I can find 100 jobs for those people to do, because there's the energy to do it with. For every man who loses his job at a petrol garage because you don't want petrol anymore, I can give him at least 100 different jobs. And still have another 100 in the spare if he still wants more to do. So energy is vital. It means work. You can now work in the desert, you can work on the poles, you can work in space, you can work on the moon. If you haven't got energy, you can't work. How can you be given work if energy is needed and there's no energy there because it costs too much to get it there? When there's a severe accident, what's the first thing that goes wrong? There's no energy. There's no transporter capable of moving the injured and the rest that are available in healthy condition to be moved. You're lost. People working against the clock, struggling. Why? There's no need for it. If you had power units by the millions, you could ship them out instant by air and present them on this type of craft. You can land anywhere. You could deliver the power units so the men can get to work with power machines to get at the injured. When I was in California last year, the official said to me, look at all this traffic. How on earth, if that strike here, we agree it will strike, millions are going to be killed outright and millions are going to die over the next few days slowly. What can you do about it? Of course you're not going to be able to do anything unless you get ready for it. You know it's coming. Why are you not prepared for it? It won't happen while we are in power. Let the next generation worry about it. Nuclear waste, chemical waste. Or we dump it, leave a bit of money in the bank for the next generation to solve the problem. Is that right? Is that right for somebody calling himself intelligent, Christian, to leave the next generation to worry about how to deal with the poisons that we left them? It is wrong for any man to make poisons and bury it. He should be made to clean it up. He should be made to prevent producing that. There's no good government standing there saying, we must not make this. I have written and begged the British government to make this machine, how important it is. But they still believe there's nothing to worry about to the year 2050. So why worry? I'm sorry, the dream says all life will be destroyed in my lifetime. Let's say I have 15 years left to live. If that's the case, this engine is very urgently needed. It takes time to set this machine up. Our colleague here has been searching for equipment to make a model so we can demonstrate later this year. It's been a hard job, I take it, to find equipment, because that sort of equipment is no longer in use. Way to make magnets today is entirely different. They don't do it the way I have to do it for this work. So we have to build machines, especially if we're going to mass produce them. I understand I'm very lucky. The gentleman has found a factory which can probably meet our need for the press. But even then, he's still got a lot of problems to find all the other bits for me. But we will make that demonstration unit, but it's no good me demonstrating it if people are not going to get up and stand up and shout, we want this machine. I can demonstrate it from now till I drop dead, but it won't save your life if you don't get up and say, we want this machine. What can we do to get it done? This gentleman knows we're dealing with some money. We've got problems. Everybody wants so much money to borrow their equipment. And while we're trying to find that money to borrow that equipment to make it, time is ticking by very fast. When I was a child, the house I lived in looked so big.
Das sind wir in der Diskussion.
Ja, ja, wir sind in der Diskussion. There are some other questions.
Darf ich mal was sagen?
Ja, Moment schnell, es waren noch andere Fragen vorher.
Entschuldigung, können wir nicht einmal Satz für Satz in Deutsch das einfache Prinzip sagen?
Aha. The gentleman would like to know the principle, sentence by sentence in German.
Oh, can you try?
Do you have drawings that we can see it on the there?
Okay.
Over there.
What do you think about it?
Well, can you?
We could try.
Yeah.
Maybe.
The understanding is much easier when we have drawings.
Ja, okay. There are some drawings here. Also sind einige Zeichnungen da, die sind aber nicht transparent, nicht projizierbar. Also, wir wollen es mal versuchen. Ich werde mal Satz um Satz übersetzen. Wir werden sehen, ob...
Zusammenfassende Sachen.
Would you like to please try to explain in some simple sentences how the machine works, what the principle is, and I try to translate it to German.
Yes, right. This is very difficult because I do not know any German, so I cannot talk direct. Right, so we'll see what our colleague can do for me. First, we must have a material which equals a reservoir in a water concept.
Also zuerst braucht ein Material, das analog zu einem Wasserreservoir Elektronen speichert oder Elektronen zur Verfügung gibt.
So, we need to take one of the rare earths for this purpose.
Nimmt dafür eine von den seltenen Erden, weil diese... Ja, okay. So.
Now, that's the reservoir, the store of electrons for use. We need to control that flow, so we need a control gate. And we use a nylon, normally nylon 6/6, because it's a beautiful double bond system.
Okay. Als nächstes braucht ein Material, das den Fluss der Elektronen steuert. Hat dafür Nylon 6/6 verwendet, weil die Anordnung der Doppelbindungen am günstigsten war.
What's nylon 6/6? Is it an element?
It's a very highly negative.
Nylon is, the gentleman asked whether nylon is an element. Nylon is no element.
It's a molecule.
Ja, das ist ein Kunststoff, nicht? Also der Kunststoff wird benötigt, um den Elektronenfluss zu steuern.
The only purpose of it is to slow the flow of electrons. Otherwise, it just throw it all through to you. You have a big surge of energy, pulsing. Big surge, then the materials charge up again and surge. That's not what we want. We want a continual controlled flow.
Also Nylon bremst, wie sagt, den Elektronenfluss und gestaltet ihn so, dass das nächste Element übernehmen kann.
Why do you have to slow down the flow of electrons? Why is it so important?
Why do you have to slow down the electrons? Why is it so important?
It's very important because you want a continuous flow of electrons. Otherwise you get big surges. And we don't want big surges.
Also wenn der Elektronenfluss nicht gesteuert wird, dann gibt es ja, so eine Art Überschwemmung.
What kinds of circuits?
Ja, wir kommen noch drauf, Verzeihung. Aha. Bitte?
Was war das mit den Big Circuits? Aber was waren das? Big circuits, what are big circuits?
He asked, what's happening if you don't control the flow of the electrons?
But if you don't control the flow, it will, as soon as you switch on, a big surge of electrons will just go through the system and blow your lamp.
Es gibt also einen Elektronenstoß, der die angehängten Installationen zerstört.
Now, the next job...
How is the electron flow? Is it irregular? or is it a regular flow?
Well, it's a regular flow if you restrict the amount that can pass at a time. You must, like water, if you don't put some sort of stopcock on, you cannot adjust the flow to match the needs. You'll have the whole lot flushing through the system out of control. So you must control it. You must control a reservoir.
Klar?
Now if you turn on the water tap, the water flows in der Pulses in different, also verschiedene Stärken. Da gibt es so eine pulsierende...
Ich schlage vor, wir machen mal Schritt um Schritt weiter und schließen die Fragen nachher an, sonst verzetteln wir uns wieder. Es sind da noch zwei Herren, die auch noch Fragen gestellt haben. Please go on with the explaining.
Yes.
And we can add the question later on.
Yes. The second thing is, you need, if you want to get a lot of energy to deliver, then you need to compact electrons. So what we need is an element which has less electrons. So we look further up and we take one of the other elements, which means that when you put these extra electrons in, the element don't want it. So what it does, it pushes it forward. Wherever the draw is, the electrons will flow to, because that's where the demand is. So they're speeded up. Now, you want to give it a bit more push, so you get a lot of electrons compressed. So we take a further element with less electrons.
Ja. May I translate?
Yes.
Just up to now. Das nächste Problem ist, die Elektronen zu verdichten. Und um das zu erreichen, nimmt er eben das nächste Element, das eigentlich, wollen wir sagen, also die Elektronen näher abstößt, nicht akzeptiert, so in seiner Sprachweise. Und dann kommt das nächste Element.
Let's go. Now, when you get to the final, you can have rings upon rings. It's the cost that makes it unnecessary. So we normally use 3 rings, just 3.
What rings? Rings?
Yeah, they're complete solid rings. They're solid to look at, but in effect, they are built up of motion of electrons. They are a semi-device indirectly.
Also man könnte dann Ring an Ring anschließen, aber das ist nicht notwendig. 3 Ringe genügen. Die Ringe, die sind eigentlich zum Anschauen, ist das festes Material, aber im Prinzip ist es eigentlich eher ein Material, das aus einem Elektronenfluss besteht, wenn es dann aktiviert wird.
What material does the rings consist of?
Just Moment. Go on, please. Moment, ja.
The thing is, what we're now looking at is the same problem as wiring for normal power. If you use thick wire, you have heavy current and low voltage. If you have thin wire, you have high voltage and low current. We've got the same sort of problem here. The faster the rollers move determines the level of a voltage. So the faster they go, the greater the voltage. So the current is less. Now, with a fine...
Just a moment. Also vergleicht das Problem mit einem dicken Leiter, also mit einem großen Querschnitt, und einem Leiter mit einem kleinen Querschnitt. Je kleiner der Querschnitt, desto höher muss die Spannung sein, um eine ähnliche Menge Elektronen durchzubekommen. Und je höher der Querschnitt, desto weniger Spannung braucht es für dieselbe Menge Elektronen. Und die Geschwindigkeit der sich bewegenden Magnete, in Anführungs- und Schlusszeichen, bestimmt dann die erreichbare Spannung.
So if we look at this problem on every day, if you had a single phase motor, it's a very big motor to turn a press or piece of machinery. If you have a 700 watt machine, it's big. So what do? We make a 3-phase motor, which is very small in comparison, to do the same job.
Also wenn Sie für den Antrieb irgendeines Gerätes einen Motor brauchen und Sie nehmen einen Einphasenmotor, dann wird er entsprechend groß. Wenn Sie aber einen 3-Phasenmotor nehmen, wird er entsprechend kleiner. Dann reduziert sich das Volumen.
Now,
kommen wir noch darauf zu sprechen, dann kann er schnell diese Darstellung noch abschließen. Ja?
Now, let's look at one other item. In the last war, we had walkie-talkies. The voltage required on them was 400 volts. But where did the energy come from? You had a little 1.7 volt S cell. When it was flat, you just emptied it and passed your urine in and went back into action. You was on the air again. 1.7 volts, that's a long way from 400 needed. How did you get it? Very simple. A little oscillator, mechanical oscillator. The 1.5 volts went on and you just flicked it. Now you had AC instead of DC. You could put it to a coil, a transformer, whip it up, and there you were on the air. A very simple thing. That concept is built into this machine. The concept of the single-phase machine and a three-phase machine and that 400 cycle is all built into this machine. I have used what is common everyday technology, but it looks different because I think different.
Als Vergleich, die alten Walkie-Talkies hatten eine Batterie von 1,7 Volt, hatten aber eine Betriebsspannung von 400 Volt. Wie das erreicht wurde, sei mit Hilfe eines, wie sagt man dem, eines Oszillators zuerst, um einen Wechselstrom zu erhalten und dann mit einem Transformator, um die Spannung zu erhöhen. Er sagt, er hätte eigentlich dieses Prinzip des Dreiphasenmotors, also Verwendung mehrerer Phasen, und dieses Prinzip des Oszillators hier in diese Maschine eingebaut. Es seien ganz alltägliche Gesetzmäßigkeiten, aber er denkt anders. Und das ist der Grund, warum es eigentlich in dieser Kombination dann geht.
Right. Now, one other thing we use in everyday working life in engineering is the flywheel. Why do we use a flywheel? Because as the weight comes down, the wheel is charged up with KE. That KE is delivered back to the machine when the weight goes up, because the motor would not be able to take that weight up on its own against gravity. The amount of KE you make that wheel charge up is enough to assist the motor on the upward wheel. In Switzerland, I understand many coaches have the flywheel in the base, so that as they go down the hill, they charge up. So when the bus climbs, it helps the engine up that hill. Without it, it is beaten. That flywheel technology is installed in this engine.
Also ein weiteres Prinzip, das in dieser Maschine enthalten ist, wäre also das Schwungrad. Das Schwungrad, das imstande ist, Energie aufzunehmen. Als Beispiel hat er erwähnt diese Girobusse, die zum Beispiel in der Schweiz ziemlich häufig verkehren. Die Girobusse treiben das Schwungrad an bei Abwärtsverkehr und dieses Schwungrad wird also, die Energie vom Schwungrad wird dann wieder auf den Antrieb übernommen bei Ebenen- oder Bergaufverkehr.
Right. We know that the faster the weight revolves, the greater the charge it can hold. That same law applies here. For a domestic power plant, we can ignore that part. But for a flying machine, that part becomes a very important part. We have to now look at the elements and say to ourselves, we've got to have 7 times the weight in that machine than the total weight of the internal machine.
Okay. Diese Gesetzmäßigkeit, dass je höher die Drehzahl, desto höher die Energie im Schwungrad, das gilt ebenfalls in dieser Maschine mit den sich drehenden Magneten. Das ist diese Drehzahl und die Geschwindigkeit ist bei einem Hausversorgungsgerät nicht so wichtig. Es wird aber bei einem Flugapparat, also bei der Flugscheibe, außerordentlich wichtig.
So, we have nothing really new in this machine. Nothing that's not known. We use it all the time. What we're doing wrong is that we're using it the wrong way. We're not using it along with nature. We're thumping nature with it. The difference with this machine is that I have considered the instructions of the dream and I have followed it. And what I found is that you don't have to thump nature. Nature will work with you.
Ja. Was also verwendet wird in dieser Maschine ist alles bekannt. Aber es wird eben anders verwendet. Das heißt, es wird so verwendet, wie es die Natur verwenden würde. Und nicht gegen die Natur. Das ist eigentlich das, was aus seinem Traum hervorkommt, als aus seinem Traum sich ergibt und was ihn auf dieses Gesetz des Quadrates gebracht hat.
All power generators built today, any motor in fact, I don't care which motor you show me, that motor is a copy of another motor and another motor and another motor. Because it's easier to just take something made and just make a copy of it to meet your requirements. No one stops and asks, can I do something better? Why waste time to make something better when you've got something you can copy and sell to the person, he'll pay for it? Why waste your brain parts to try to think up something different? And that is what's wrong.
Steht das Problem eigentlich, das an der heutigen Technologie immer wieder beobachtet ist, dass zum Beispiel ein Motor immer mehr oder weniger eine Kopie eines früheren Motors ist und so weiter. Es wird da nichts Neues gemacht, es wird eigentlich mehr kopiert und man sollte die Gesetzmäßigkeiten von Grund auf wieder überdenken. Das ist das, was gemacht hat.
So here we have a situation. A company is making motors, aircraft, cars, on their computers, all the blocks that they've got, all the gears, all the bits and pieces. You say you want a car to do this, right, on the computer, right, we got this, that, yeah, we can get you the car, make it. But I look at this and I say to myself, I do not like the results of that system. Can I better it? And the answer is yes. There is no way on this earth you cannot better something if you want to sit down and work it out. You can better anything you've got if you'd like to take the time to work it out.
Also im Prinzip ist es ein System, das hat als Beispiel verwendet. Es ist alles schön gespeichert in den Computern. Man kann praktisch einen neuen Wagen, einen neuen Motor und so weiter abrufen. Aber er liebt dieses System nicht. Er ist der Meinung, dass man sich hinsetzen sollte und das Ganze überarbeiten. Und wenn man das überarbeiten will, dann funktioniert es auch. Could we go on with further questions, please? Ja, nein, der Herr mit der Brille hat zuerst eine Frage gestellt. Ja.
Die erste Frage ist, aus welchen Materialien die Kugeln. Die zweite Frage ist, steht dieser Levitationseffekt, den ihr da beobachtet habt, steht der in irgendeinem Zusammenhang zum erdmagnetischen Feld?
First question, what is the material combination of the runners? And the second question is the levitating effect of the disk. Does it, is there any connection to the Earth's magnetic field?
But to the first question, the materials, you have the element chart. You have to decide what you can afford, because some materials are very expensive today. Whatever you do, long as you take one of these, done on the bottom set, for your reservoir, very important, the heavy element to be used. One of these must be used, because that's the only set with extra electrons that they don't want. None of these is no good. Then, bear in mind, you need to control those electrons when you start them to move. That's important if you want a continuous flow. Otherwise, you'll get nowhere. Then you want some means to accelerate the electrons, to compact them for use, because you want to induce the electrons into the winding, because you want to improve the quality of your home. After all, wiring costs money. If you've got to keep rewiring every 20 years, why rewire if you don't have to? You don't have to. It's because you're hitting that cable with a sledgehammer, you've got to replace it. So why do it the wrong way? Then you want one other thing. You need one of the more higher values, in other words, the lower element number to use for the emitter. so it emits. So what you're looking at is a machine like a transistor. Exactly like a transistor in your radio set, in your TV set, in your computer. It is working exactly like that. It is working precisely in no other way than that. Now, when we print the rollers and the plates, we are doing what you do with your videotape when you're recording. We're doing the same as you do to an audio tape that's running in there now. You have the crystals lined up in one direction, and as I talk, certain crystals are being reversed right angles. So when you play that back...
May I translate that for maybe that I lost something? Vielleicht zuerst eine Korrektur, die Runner sind nicht kugelförmig, sondern walzenförmig. Dann hat er im Prinzip wiederholt, was er schon gesagt hat. Das innerste Element ist eines aus den seltenen Erden. Dann kommt ein Kunststoff mit entsprechend angeordneten Doppelbindungen. Dann kommt ein Element aus der Umgebung von Titan. Und dann kommt eines, das die Elektronen emittieren kann. Das wäre so irgendwo in der Gegend von Eisen. Das hat er gesagt, und im Prinzip ist die Magnetisierung nur eine sogenannte Magnetisierung. Er tut etwas Ähnliches wie auf einem Magnetband. Es wird ein bestimmtes Muster, ein bestimmtes Magnetmuster aufgegeben. Und im Prinzip funktioniert das Ganze ähnlich wie der Transistor. Okay.
So we have a thing to think about in this design, and this is how I thought. If a little man can pick a pebble up from the ground, put it in a slingshot, swing it around, let it go, and it kills a giant of a man. The stone did not kill him. What did kill him? It is the KE, the kinetic energy it picked up from that sling. It's traveling at 80 kilometers per second to his head. It wasn't the stone that killed him, it's the KE that killed him. Now, with all conventional motors, when the KE increases, the PE decreases. When KE decreases, PE increases. This engine is different, only in that respect. The KE and the PE goes up together. The amount of KE you can produce pushes the PE up. Nothing better in this world. That's doing precisely what you want it to do.
Die eigentlich als Beispiel verwendet die Schleuder. Eine Schleuder, die einen Kieselstein beschleunigt und dann jemanden verletzt. Da ist ja nicht der Stein, der jemanden verletzt, sondern die kinetische Energie des Steins. Im Prinzip eigentlich alle Maschinen, die bekannt sind, die arbeiten auf wechselnd, also unterschiedliche potenzielle und kinetische Energie. In seinem System nimmt die potenzielle und die kinetische Energie gleichmäßig zu. Die bedingen sich gegenseitig.
Now, in reference to your second question, with a craft, we have got to have immense KE and immense PE. So we have got to build in an engine a flywheel and a gyro. Why have more than one engine when one engine will do the job? In conventional American designs on discs, they have an engine for this and an engine for that and then a stabilizing engine, and what happens is that the whole thing is out of balance when you get to about 25,000 feet. It was all right at ground level and it crashed when you get to a realistic height. With this engine, I had to give a lot of thought to for flying. I realized that the craft must be kept balanced at all times, at all levels. I had to put in this machine a control system for angle. Why? How could I keep putting a number of motors around for control? It's going to cost money. I want a lot of energy for flight. I want energy for use inside. Can I get it from one machine? And the answer is yes, you can. The engine must be 7 times heavier than the internal structure to get the KE that you need. But the beauty about this machine, as I stated earlier about a domestic power plant, the faster it runs, the colder it gets. And we know in laboratories that when we get cold, strange things happen. Materials rise, water goes the other way, do peculiar things. This world is the world we need for this flying machine.
May I translate that? I tried. Die Frage, wie viele Maschinen, also viele Motoren eingebaut werden sollen. Er hat als Beispiel die runden, also die scheibenförmigen Flugkörper, die auch in Amerika gebaut wurden, mit konventionellen Antrieben erwähnt. Er hat gesagt, wie schwer es war, die zu stabilisieren und was für Probleme dabei aufgetreten sind. Die Frage, wie er das Gefährt steuern kann, musste auch irgendwie gelöst werden. Es hätte mit mehreren Maschinen gelöst werden können, also mehreren Antrieben. Er hat es aber mit einem Antrieb gelöst. Und eine Zahl, die gesagt wurde, ist, die Maschine, also der Antrieb selber muss 7-mal schwerer sein als die gesamte Struktur. Dann funktioniert das.
I'm sorry we haven't got the machine to show you, but it's a very interesting technique that I use to do it. We have the standard machine because it's massive, because it's near the rim of the craft. Why don't you put it right on the rim? Surely that'd be the best place. If you put it on the rim, how do you control it for flight angle? Because no gyro will operate if you touch the inside of it. It just ignores the touch. You have to touch it on the outside, then the point of touch drops. So as the disc flies along, if you want to change course, you just touch the outside of the gyro motion and whoop, you've changed course.
Mr. Chef, darf ich mal ganz kurz, ich stelle gerade fest, make it slowly to an end. Und diejenigen, die noch Fragen an Herrn Searle haben, können ja draußen in der Mitte dieser Halle sich noch zusammensetzen oder sich persönlich an ihn wenden. Der Raum wird noch gebraucht, aber eine andere Nachricht noch. Abgesehen davon, dass ich hier als Vertreter des Ausstellers mich herzlich bedanken möchte für alles, was Sie uns geboten haben, auch dass Sie so rührend übersetzt haben. Es tut mir leid, dass wir nicht alles verstanden haben, weil Englisch ist eine schwere Sprache und wir sind auch nicht alle Techniker. Aber ich hoffe, Herr Keller stellt sich auch noch zur Verfügung, dass er ihn draußen in der Halle... Genau. Und ein kurzer Satz, sicherlich, ich spreche nicht ab, sondern nur für die, solange noch die Leute da sind. In dieser Zeitschrift Raum und Zeit ist der Searle-Effekt beschrieben, zumindest ist auch über den Werdegang und die politischen Hintergründe des Werdegangs von Herrn Searle und was er alles erlebt hat. Auch Dr. Köppel, der bei uns sitzt, ist Mitautor, Herr Ehlers ist Mitautor und Herr Searle hat seinen Segen dazu gegeben. Raum und Zeit, ich mache nur Werbung dafür, weil oben übrig ist statt 14,80 Mark 10 Mark. Und das andere Heft, das Bionic-Heft, das zu diesem Messe herausgekommen ist, das gibt Ihnen die ganzen Adressen vom Veranstalter und die Filme, die es zu liefern gibt. Der Kameramann ist hier. Das kriegen Sie kostenlos. Und ich bitte um Verständnis, dass allmählich jetzt dann wieder zu Ende kommen.
Hier in der Grafik.
Eric von Däniken's hypothesis will have an increasing effect on society, science, literature, and art. The search for extraterrestrial intelligence is a concern that affects all of humanity.
For me, it's like souvenirs of the past. Some of our human forefathers had contact with extraterrestrials. They were here, they visited us, they were in contact. Something happened in the deep past and it will happen again in the future.
The author of the sensational international bestseller and the most compelling non-fiction publication of all time is back in London for the first time in 25 years to celebrate Chariots of the Gods' 50th anniversary. Eric von Däniken Legacy Night. In this 2-hour special, you are invited to share with Eric his most influential discoveries and revelations. Learn about his incredible life journey as an author and researcher. Meet the team behind the highly anticipated Chariots of the Gods 360-degree entertainment franchise. Eric Von Däniken Legacy Night. Live streamed from the Princess Anne Theatre, BAFTA 195, Piccadilly, London, October 15th, 2016. For more information and to purchase tickets, please visit zoharstargate.com.
The rest of everything in the universe breaks into two groups. They are called oscillating group 2, and then the group 3 contains both oscillating and rotation. We, as human beings, belong to group 3. We oscillate and we rotate. The oscillation in the body generates electrical power, the rotation keeps everything happy. Now, the SEG, as we call it, the solar effect engine or motor or generator, is this. It is not a motor as you accept the motor. It is an effect. It is not the motor. The motor can produce electric or it can drive a car, train, aircraft. So the machine itself is not the item in question. It's the effect. Thus it's called solar effect. We normally have a demonstration model, but unfortunately, 5 years ago, official people put pay to it. So we have to build another one. What happens is that you get 4 forces, 2 sets. On the left side is a lower value than the right side in the force. On the horizontal, the lower force is greater than the top force. And the amount difference on the horizontal is 2 units. Just 2 units. That applies to everything. No matter what the value of the machine you're building, that law holds good. But the law on the vertical has a set rule, and that is you take the square in which you're building the machine, and the value of the second line of the base that you're working from is the value between these two. So if you've got a 4 mixture machine, you will find the value between, on the first level, is 8 between these two. What happens is when you print your rollers and plates, the rollers go on, no way. As a youngster, I had a dream. In fact, 2 dreams. They alternated. First one, then the second, then the first one, then the second. 4 dreams a year in 2 types. 6 years. How can a man have a dream, 2 dreams exactly the same every time, just like that, and mean nothing? At the age of 14, I looked at my dream. It's a game you all probably know. We call it hopscotch. But in this dream, this very game is very important. So important that your life depends on that being fulfilled. The picture is this. As the dream starts, I am standing on the square 2. My right leg is up high to cross into 4. My pebble that I've thrown is in 3. There are 8 squares. Why not circles? Why not triangles? Why squares? Why always in 2? Why always the pebble in 3? Why are we always in the same position to cross over? At this moment in time, and up to that point, all the children you know are with you. Then they vanish. You are all alone. You cannot move. Up here, coming towards you, is a steamroller. Now, that's a big steam power unit which rolls the road to repair it. Why has a steamroller came in this dream? It has nothing to do with the game. I'm afraid it has everything to do with the game. It's saying you are going to be responsible for producing immense energy. What happens? That is not the minimum number you can do. If we change these by 1, so we'll do that again. This time we'll do the minimum 1. Now, every line adds to 12. 8 choices, 12. What do we get from 12? The laws of all energy. 4 domains. Your 4 squares you're going into. They're split into 3 sections. At all time you must know 2 states. That's why you're in 2, you must know 2 the states to get the 3rd. In each domain you have 2 choices of each product that you are calculating. So you have 6, that's your 6 years of dreams. So what we're talking about, the steamrollers say immense energy, the law of the square say what you're going to be involved with is energy. Right. What do we find when we look deeper into this mathematical squares? We find this, that every square has its own fingerprint. And no matter how much you try to do to get them to balance, they have a precise rule. Therefore, you cannot have a 1 square, you cannot have a 2 square. You start with 3. And nature works like this. Half of everything in the universe belongs to group 1. All your odd numbers belong to group 1. They rotate. Can they balance? So they move. When they move, the force reverses. The roller still has not got a stable state in which it can stop. It moves. How powerful you want those rollers to move will depend on the square you select to work from. Now, quickly I'll show you what the generator looks like, or the motor. I don't know if people can see from the back, but what it boils down to, we use 3 plates. There's a gap between each plate for rollers to rotate. When the rollers are put in, they immediately revolve. They have no choice. They cannot come to a stationary point in which they can remain stationary. To be able to stop them moving, you have to have an oscillator coil built around the machine, which you can apply an audio oscillation to slow down the rollers and to bring them to a halt. Now this is what you have to do. If we were building an estate, you've got to supply water to it. How do you supply that water? You've got to have a reservoir. You've got to store your water. That's important. Without the reservoir, you cannot keep water going to the customers. Then you've got to have control valves, control the flow which you want that flow to reach your customers. Then you've got to pipe it to the customer. You may have to put a high tars to build pressure, to keep the pressure there, to maintain the flow that you want to the houses. In other words, the engine that I have to produce got to meet these conditions. So, what I've done for a very simple machine, which is now being built, is to use our 4 systems. If all these people you've just seen vanish are going to remain on Earth, you've got to do something about it. You've got to stop, think, act. What are you going to do about it? Your life is in danger. you're going to be crushed to death. So what am I going to do about it? Surely, if it's telling you all life is going to be killed, if you don't do something about it, surely it's telling you what to do. So look at it. 1 don't have nothing to do with that picture. 2, what does 2 mean? It means there are 2 positive states in everything. Yes, no, born, death. 3, the marker. What does that mean? It means that you have a time span between birth and death which you must make use of. It's asking you, what are you going to do about it? You are being threatened. You've got to do something. What's the 4 for, and why 8? Well, I look at the 3, and it's very interesting. If we can write, I'll just see. If you take the square, and I assume that y is always squares, is because it's something to do with a square. And that's 3 is the first marker. Let's see what happens. So right, we said I don't know if you can read that, but if you add it all up, it adds to a precise number. Every line horizontal gives you 15. Every vertical gives you 15. The 2 diagonals give you 15. You have 8 options. 8 squares are shown in your 3. 8 options. Now,